Alabama getting ready to take on Western Kentucky. It's time for Cover Crimson. Guys, we appreciate you all being here as we get this thing started. Clint Lamb, Mick Gillispie, and it's brought to you by MyBookie. We're going to talk about what's going on with this offensive line. We got a little bit of coaches clips. We can break that down. We're going to talk about how prolific this offense can be and some other stuff, including Nick Saban living the high life right now, I guess, right? So we saw his crib. Maybe he'll be on MTV's Cribs sometime soon. Let's get this thing started, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Roll Tide, everybody. Look, the comment section, they're waiting on us. And Clint, you're here. I'm here. I got my shirt on. You guys get one of these if you subscribe. This is the annual subscription gift right now, and I love it. Mike Johnson and I just did a show for the subscribers, although non-subscribers get to watch this week. Then after that, we're behind the paywall. And he's like, hey, how do I get one of these? Where's my hat?
Are you going to hook him up, Mick?
I'm going to try. I'm going to talk to Reed and see if I can pull some strings, but Roll Tide, Tony. First guy in there today. Jay, Roll Tide to you. Right back at you, man. Bob, Roll Tide. Michael, Roll Tide. Little Joe, man. I love that. Like Little Joe. Roll Tide to you, man. Michael Coleman, Roll Tide. And we're going to talk Alabama football. All right, Clint, going into this game, your thoughts. I mean, I keep hearing the term haze in the barn, and I get that. But it's crazy to think that we're at this point now where the DeBoer era is like literally about to start, and I think it's going to be based on offense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to a lot to pay attention to, right? I mean, obviously it's the season opener. I understand, Alabama's a 31.5 point favorite or whatever it is. So it's not like a lot of people think that this is going to be close. So if that ends up being the case, I'm trying to avoid as much rat poison as possible. Nick Saban has conditioned me in that way. But right. If you're looking at it and you're thinking, okay, Alabama should have a comfortable lead at some point, they're going to start working into their rotations and stuff. What type of things can you take away from this kind of game? And for me, it's more of like, what do the rotations look like? Like you look at a guy like Jalen Hill last year. Jalen Hill in the season opener against MTSU, he gets brought in pretty early on, surprisingly early on, and he ends up getting 3 targets in that game. I think he only had like 13 all year. There was only one other game where he had 3, a lot where he had 2 and 1. And so but as soon as they brought Hill in, they immediately started trying to get him the football. And then just a few weeks later, he's catching touchdown passes against Ole Miss, big-time touchdown passes. And so you can kind of take away, okay, who are they getting out there? When are they getting them out there? What's their usage when they're out there? I want to see defensively, like how aggressive are they on defense? How aggressive are they on offense? How many design quarterback runs are there for Jalen Milroe?
There he is.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
How much throws on me?
So it's like, how many design quarterback runs are you getting Jalen Milroe? How many times is he willing to take off and run compared to
and also this, Clint, and how hungry is he to get that extra yard? Is it the LSU running Jalen Milroe, or is it Michigan where he was tentative?
That's exactly right. It's because I feel like that will tell us a lot. I understand in some of the bigger games he might be willing to do a little bit more. But is he someone that's still trying to win from within the pocket? How often is he winning from within the pocket? But if you know that he's also like that, hey, they're doing some, extra things to get him involved in the run game, design quarterback runs on top of the fact that, hey, when it's not there, he seemed to show an extreme willingness to run, use his legs, get the first down however you need to, or get the yardage however you need to. It's little things like that. You can still take away a lot from these kind of games.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think it's also about building depth on the offensive line. And we got a chance to catch up with Coach Cap. I'm going to play you the clip here, and then I want you to kind of react on it. You know that Wilkin Formby and Elijah Pritchard are battling for one spot. And I don't know how you could watch this guy and think I wouldn't want to play for this guy. I really like Coach Cap. Let's just go and throw this up here and kind of let him talk, and then we'll chew on it.
Both of them want to be the guy. Both of them want to be on the field the whole time, right? But they'll understand if they see the big picture that there's some strengths to being able to rotate guys or maybe a little fresher than some of the other guys. And I do think, they're not going to like it as much as I will. But again, that competition, if there's somebody that can take your job, if you're not giving everything you have every minute of every day and every second of every play, that's great for us.
And I think that doesn't just bode for a battle for the right tackle spot. I'm going to tell you guys right now, that bodes for anything in life. When somebody's trying to take your spot, you're going to be better for it. And the fact that they've got a right tackle situation where that we don't know who's going to play, although they are saying, Clint, that don't be surprised if we don't see 6 guys rotating.
So Emily Grace on Twitter, she posted this quote from Kalen DeBoer during the SEC coaches teleconference. He, according to her, he said, "You could easily see us playing 6 offensive linemen throughout the game and rotating at one position, right tackle." My question to you is, okay, throughout the, 6 offensive linemen throughout the game and rotating at one position, right tackle. Now, is that saying that there will be 6 total? Like, I couldn't fully understand that quote, meaning like the right tackle is going to be rotating. You got 5 starters. That's obviously 6. Or he's just saying if we're rotating 6 offensive linemen throughout the entire game and you're seeing a rotation at right tackle. I'm guessing it was just the 6 and he means, they're going to be playing 2 guys at right tackle, but I wondered if we might see some Geno Vandermark too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, when you create depth at that spot, man, I think it's a really important position to have a lot of depth in. I totally get that part of it and think that it's not just one game. You're talking about a whole season, and physically it's a spot where it demands a lot.
And you're still trying to figure some things out. And so he's 100% correct. We saw the benefits of Tyler Booker rotating in at guard, a couple of years ago. You had Emil Ekiyor Jr., you had Javion Cohen. At one point early on, it was like Kendall Randolph was kind of, involved in that left guard mix, but then it ended up, Tyler Booker did a phenomenal job of not only did he establish enough continuity with the offensive line where when he came into the game, it wasn't like things were off. In fact, I would say in a lot of ways it got better every time he was on the field, but he also showed the versatility to play left and right guard. And I just thought that was so important for not only his development and where he's at now, but it was also important for Alabama because, Javion Cohen had his demands, and now he's, he wasn't in Tuscaloosa the following season. Emil Ekiyor Jr. was a senior, so he wasn't going to be able to come back. So you got Tyler Booker all kinds of reps, I think over 400 snaps that year, and that really benefited him last year when he became a full-time starter. So, just the reps they're going to be getting. I think Elijah Pritchett's action last year, rotating with Caden Proctor at left tackle, it wasn't a ton, but it was enough where he's seen some of this stuff. He's had to deal with it a little bit. I think he's going to be better for that. And I think Wilkin Formby is going to be better for anything that he gets. So you're establishing some depth. Geno Vandermark there on the interior as well. Jaden Roberts we know he's going to play, right, but he might not be 100% healthy yet. He might still be getting there. So I just wondered if maybe Geno Vandermark might rotate in a little bit. I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't until the game was out of hand. But I think, we've talked about it on the show already. I think they got, a really good depth interior guy and a really good depth tackle, depending on who ends up losing that job at right tackle.
Guys, I want to remind you that we're brought to you by MyBookie.ag, MyBookie.ag. Cover Crimson every single day. Brought to you by MyBookie.ag. Use the promo code NEXTROUND to double your initial bonus. That's right. MyBookie will double your initial deposit when you use the promo code NEXTROUND. Kick off the football season with MyBookie.ag and double your initial deposit by using the promo code NEXTROUND. I know I said that over and over again, but take advantage of it, man. Look, they're the reason why we're hanging with you right now. So we appreciate them. And don't forget, Cover Crimson annual subscription. We'll get this T-shirt out to you so you can sport that around the house or at work or wherever you go. Let me put one more clip up from Coach Cap. and then let's chew on this a little bit, because I feel like that the offensive line is going to be the biggest strength of this team. It's also one of the biggest position battles that's going on this year. He might be my favorite coach too, Clint.
I think his confidence, in the room, his confidence of playing here, and I think just the bonding he's had with the guys. He's very comfortable with everybody. There was a lot of change that hit him quickly, so I think he feels real comfortable where he's at with everything. So you see the growth there.
Mm-hmm. That's big.
Right, there you go. Yeah, and was he talking about Proctor, right?
No. He's talking about Parker Brailsford.
Oh, Parker Brailsford, yeah. And the biggest strength of this team is the snap.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of fans had questions as to what was going on with him back in the spring. I think Coach Cap kind of alluded to it there. A lot of change just going from Washington to Alabama, new teammates. You had the continuity with the coaching staff and stuff, but his own position coach was no longer there. His offensive coordinator was no longer there, so he was dealing with quite a bit of change. And he was a college kid. He went through an adjustment period, but he's essentially saying he's come along very nicely. I think the guys in that room have really embraced him, brought him in. He feels like a part of the team. And, I think that's absolutely huge for the offensive line, because you are 100% correct, Mick. He is such an important part of, what Alabama is going to want to do. They do some things with the center, or at least they did at Washington, that not a whole lot of teams do. I mean, as far as pulling the center a little bit, getting him on the move, he's such an athletic guy, working up to the second level. Just a real fun player. And when you have that style of guy, especially when maybe some of your other offensive linemen are really good, but they're not built for your current scheme, you might have to change it a little bit in how you operate and how you do things. But at that center position, as far as the communication and what you can continue to do with him, with Parker Brailsford, you can, you've got that continuity. I think that's really, really important. Would you say, okay, and this might be an unfair question, would you say getting Caden Proctor back at left tackle or Parker Brailsford at center, which was the bigger move or the more important move for Alabama this season? Or do you view them as kind of equal?
Man, I love it when you ask me questions, because you never miss an opportunity to nail it, dude. Like, that's a great question right there. And it's so tough. If Seth McLaughlin wasn't the center last year, I might not care as much. But I thought he stunk. I mean, I get it, man. Maybe you can block and maybe you can read defenses, but if you can't snap the football, you're no good. I mean, I'm sorry. But that is the most important job of a center, is to get the ball to the quarterback. And it was just absolutely ridiculous watching bad snap after bad snap in the biggest games of the season. And I see in the comment sections, I think you guys understand that, right? So Brailsford coming over was a big deal, but look, Proctor coming back it's hard to say, because when your teammates say you're like Kobe Bryant, right? And when he was struggling last year, remember that? And it's like, hey man, and Alpha Dog, I'm throwing you up there. That's how I felt. When your teammates are like, this guy's got Kobe Bryant type potential. Kobe Bryant's one of the greats, man. So I don't know that I'm saying, Clint, snapping the ball or having someone that could absolutely dominate, could be the next Evan Neal, could be the next Tyler Booker. I think both guys are important, but to me, just having come off of the hangover of Seth McLaughlin and bad snap after bad snap in big situations, I got to say Brailsford to me.
Yeah, I don't think people realize, you couldn't have had a worse combination as far as the limitation. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. And this is phenomenal comment. The combination of the fact that Jalen Milroe and kind of what he struggled with as far as, what he was being asked, or not what he was being asked to do, but what he as a quarterback, you're required to do as far as reading pre-snap, seeing things. And then, post-snap, you got certain places where your eyes need to be going. If you're running RPO stuff, which Alabama didn't do a ton of last year, but, there's certain things you got to see. And when you're constantly worried about, not only is in the back of your mind, even if it's a good snap, it's the fact that as a quarterback, you've got all this other stuff up there that you're trying to deal with. And especially a guy like Jalen Milroe, who was maybe struggling with some of that. And then you combine it with the fact that you've now got to worry about, is this snap going to be where it needs to be? A quarterback should stick his hands out, and that football should hit his hands 100% of the time. I mean, you might have one, in a blue moon that just isn't exactly perfect, but it's got to be to a point where he can handle it. That's something that he had to worry about, and making sure it wasn't second nature. It wasn't, this ball's going to be where I need it to be. I can go ahead and be thinking about other things. The first thing you needed to do was make sure you got that snap because you weren't sure if it was going to be in the right place. And so everything for him, as far as what he struggles with, it was slowing that kind of stuff down. And then it also throws off the complete timing of your play. In the Rose Bowl, not the national championship, in the Rose Bowl on that final play, people will blame it on a lot of different things. To me, it's a Seth McLaughlin thing. And I'm not trying to criticize the guy a ton, but that's how I feel about it because, with Milroe having to look down.
I'll criticize him for you, Clint.
I mean, you can't Jalen didn't know all he could do in that moment. And maybe he did panic a little bit. But when that snap was off, he wasn't looking to figure out where he needed to go. It was just catch the football because it was low and then take off straight. And he ran right into the butt of some of his own guys. And it ended up being a stop, and Alabama loses the game. And it's like from start to finish, the snaps were very poor last year. And I think having a guy like Parker Brailsford is going to, fix all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, and they say, "Oh, he's undersized." Look, man, that's a position where I don't care. If you're strong, and he's one of the strongest guys on the team. Plus, he was on the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line last year. He's going to be fantastic, man. These guys, Kalen DeBoer is so calculated when it comes to the people that he brought with him. It's like, hey, I'm going to bring the guys that are going to help me win right now. And having a center, you don't think he knew that Alabama's center was terrible? I'm sure he watched the game and was probably like, man, these guys are going to lose because they can't get the snap.
Yeah.
Think about it.
And when you combine the fact that you can be more consistent with your snaps, if you're on top of what we expect Jalen Milroe to improve on as far as, his responsibilities pre and post snap, that's where you can really start to see a lot of growth. If you just fix that one problem, Alabama had a slew of problems last year, whether it be offensively or as a team. But, if you just fix that problem and you allow Milroe to focus on more of what he needs to focus on, I think just fixing that would go a long ways with the offense. And then you combine that with some of the other stuff, the fact that it's going to be Kalen DeBoer's offense and the way it can strain you. There's a reason that everybody's expecting a big jump from this offense. And it comes from, some of the more complex things all the way down to the most simplest thing, which is snapping the football.
Easy stuff, guys. Also easy is $1 to sign up. We want you to be part of the team. And you can do that right now. Covercrimson.com. Sign up for $1. Mike Johnson and I it'll be released later today, but we just did our first show that subscribers get. We got other shows that'll be part of that, but we're going to throw it out for everybody this week. But you guys will get a chance to check that out. Mike, the 2-time All-American. It's called the All-American Report, and it doesn't have to do with me. And if you threw 2-time on there, people might think I'm one of the All-Americans, but Mike was both of the All-Americans. 2008 and 2009.
He's one of our All-Americans too, by the way.
Yeah, he is, man.
He's a Cover Crimson All-American.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you get this shirt if you sign up for the annual, but had an absolute blast. I'm sure at some point he's going to tell a lot of stories on me and some of the things that happened when we worked together on radio in the past. He kind of off the air, I think, or maybe it was on the air. No, it was off the air. We got off the show and he started reminding me of some stuff. And I was like, God, save this for on the air, man. Part owner now. They're going to fire me. That's the best part about it. Like, I'll fire myself. We've had such a great time, Clint. You being part of it, this entire crew, this channel is going to be fantastic. And so is the site, just because we got people around us that we like being around, and you guys are going to love being around us as well. So take advantage of this as we talk. Now, one of the guys that I talked about, Coach Cap, maybe being my favorite coach. Coach Shep's kind of up there too. I want to play this clip of Coach Shep talking about like the wide receivers and get you to chew on that, because the wide receiver group, hearing a lot of people talking about who might be the next guy, but there's one guy that I think is going to be the next guy. Just depends on how long it takes for this youngster to just integrate into, obviously when you're supposed to be a high school senior, into being, the guy that you can possibly be. But this is an exciting group, Clint, and here's what Coach Shep had to say.
Game week. Honestly, our group runs a lot. We run a lot of plays. We get a lot of volume, especially on Tuesday, Wednesday, and even on Thursday. But on Monday, some of them will be trickling into my office to try to come watch some film to kind of preemptively get themselves ready for, whatever we're going to see so they can get their first look at it. But I try to give them that information on Sunday, so I'm kind of working backwards on you guys with this. But it's just a lot of volume. We try to put a lot of pressure on them to be able to continuously perform all throughout the week. We don't catch balls. Someone on the field doesn't catch the ball. Guys are on the sideline doing up downs. They weren't even in the game. There's just an expectation that our guys at this position go out there and catch the football and compete for the football. That's just the way I coach it.
Dude, I love that, man. And good to see.
Yeah.
I got to say this right now. EG, thank you for the video.
Yeah, all that content was courtesy of her. And I mean, I love that, man. You would think, you're a wide receiver, you're expected to catch the ball. How many times do we see guys dropping balls? There was there was some drops in some key moments a couple of years ago in a national championship, and it cost Alabama the game.
The guy that was complaining about not playing and he's trying to catch the ball like this.
I mean, I would say,
how'd Texas work out for you, buddy?
I think UCF was the latest attempt. Anyways, not going to get too much into that, but
let me do that, Clint. I'll take him.
But I do find it interesting that Kalen DeBoer, he talked about the offensive line, talked about, I guess, 6 guys, expect to see 6 guys, whatever. He said that he was fairly confident in 5 to 7 receivers. And I just feel like that lined up perfectly with what we've been hearing. You say 5, okay, that's the front end of that. And we've heard about, Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law, Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams, and Cole Adams all seeing time with the first team. That's been fairly consistent. And so that falls right into that category. That's 5 guys. When you start expanding that to 7, 6 or 7, anywhere between those two numbers, Emmanuel Henderson's your obvious 6. And even a guy like Caleb Odom, who I think will be more of a situational player, but he's probably going to get some action. Just put it on tape where, future opponents say, okay, they got this big body guy who can be a red zone nightmare, can win those 50-50 balls, do all that stuff. We've got to prepare for that. And then even in the bigger games, the Wisconsins on the road, the Georgias, if they condense that wide receiver rotation a little bit, then you still made Georgia and Wisconsin prepare for Caleb Odom. And that's more time that they had to spend on him, which means that's less time they spend on these other guys. And so I think that's really, really smart. And just situationally, I think he would be a massive part of this offense, and he would provide something. I've said that, multiple times. He would provide something a little bit different. And so just the 5 to 7, I thought that, would you say, Mick, do you think Jaron Hamilton or Rico Scott or some of those guys might have been in the 5 to 7 that he's talking about? Or do you agree it's probably Caleb Odom as that 7th guy?
Man, that's a good question. I feel like Odom's got to get in the game. I love the fact that he's a big-bodied wide receiver. And who's the last, big-bodied wide receiver that you remember at Alabama? That's my question. Where somebody that's just jumping up in traffic and pulling down passes.
I will say some of the ball winning ability of some of your ride outs and stuff, it was better than you would expect from guys that size. But a Kim Sims was kind of a longer guy. Tyrell Shavers was supposed to be that, and he's actually been doing some pretty good things for the Buffalo Bills. I don't know if he made the squad or not, but he obviously ended up not working out in Tuscaloosa. So yeah, they haven't really. OJ Howard being a tight end was kind of that in a way, but he also was like a run after the catch guy. So he was a big body player. I don't know that they've really had a true monster ball winner in quite a while. I'm sure someone can post, some names and kind of jog my memory a little bit. But I would say probably Cam Sims, the closest I can remember. Julio,
that's what I'm saying.
Sure, Julio. Yeah, it's been a while.
But Julio. But I feel like Julio is a lot different than some of these other guys.
Ran a 4.3.
Yeah, yeah, right. Julio was just such a specimen. I'll say this too about Julio. I think Julio is the best wide receiver of the Nick Saban era.
I don't know if anybody from a production standpoint, you would have to go with someone else, but from a pure talent, and if Julio would have been playing in some of these systems that Alabama's had in the last 5 years, Nick, I don't see how you could really argue that too much. I mean,
Well, you don't get to where you are without Julio Jones. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't even get there. Like when he was there, it wasn't like you had Waddles and whoever, Smitty on the other side of the field. It was like Julio and Julio. Like you know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, just with Coach Shep, I mean, he is such an impressive guy. And you can tell when he's talking about overloading guys and putting a lot on their plate, a lot of things they have to handle. When you're constantly doing that, you do one of two things. Either a guy buys into that and he embraces that and he thrives in that environment, or he doesn't and he probably ends up not playing much at Alabama and he has to go somewhere else. But you establish who those types of players are, and then there's nothing really going on Saturdays that you're worried about as far as guys being overwhelmed or, having too much on their plate. And, so it's just like putting them constantly in those pressure environments, I think is such a good approach. And then you also, I mean, he's talked about the route running and just, not dumbing it down, but simplifying everything early in camp. Even, just a couple of weeks ago, they're working on mastering their craft. It's the attention to detail. And I think that with certain positions, Nick Saban was always that guy. That never changed. He has always been attention to detail, but I think maybe some of the assistant coaches maybe weren't as attention to detail. And I think that ended up making a huge impact on the product you saw on the field. And I think Alabama's getting back to that a little bit more.
All right, look, we're going to bring in EG, but Chris, good to see you again, man. I'm glad you're back again. He said Julio dropped a lot of passes. Amari Cooper was the best. Look, Amari Cooper was great too. You're just mad about what Julio did to you guys in 2009. That whole drive.
They're all better than anything Auburn's had. So
good to see you, Chris. Let's bring EG in, and obviously she's down on campus right now. Let me switch with you. What's up? How is it down? Look at you. Got the great view today, huh?
Absolutely. It feels like game week. So media is officially concluded for the week. The next time we chat with coaches will be after Saturday's game.
Well, that's a good thing, Clint. I know you're excited about Saturday's game.
Yeah, and Coach Shepard, the energy that guy has, you can see, you talk about like the Nick Saban standard. I feel like this guy, even though he's a wide receivers coach, co-offense coordinator, whatever his role is, he seems to be a guy who has a standard. And his players, you've seen the results. They tend to live up to that standard.
I agree. I think that we're seeing that all throughout fall camp and spring, that players really respect him. They respect his voice on the practice field. And I'm curious to see how it's going to translate on Saturday. I asked him, what is his game week like for his position group? I actually asked Peyton Thorne this yesterday in Auburn. And it was interesting to kind of compare answers. And one thing that stuck out to me was how on that Monday, guys were already coming into the office, picking his brain, as well as they overload them with so much volume that they feel like practice is actually harder than game week. But, guys, he did say the one word to describe his group, inexperienced. That was a little surprising to me, especially since we're only 3.5 days out of the game.
That is interesting. Seems like, though, when you talk about a coach saying that they might have like 6 or 7 options, that's got to be a good thing for that group.
Right, and that was what was interesting. And so after we were in the indoor practice facility, we headed over to the media room inside of Moore. And as we were listening to Coach DeBoer on the coaches teleconference, where he mentioned that there's 5 to 7 guys that he feels confident in, I don't want to say that it was contradicting what we had just heard from Coach Shep, but it was interesting to compare those two, as well as kind of figure out who exactly he was referring to.
Yeah, there's a lot of different guys that Alabama has a good wide receiver room, and I do feel like they can trust, several players. We'll kind of shift to the offensive line. Coach Cap, obviously, he was bragging on, Parker Brailsford and the growth that he's made. I mean, from you got to think he's going to be a lot more comfortable now than he was back in the spring. And from a continuity standpoint, a gelling, getting comfortable with your teammates and your other offensive linemen, that's got to be huge for the offense.
For sure. And we heard multiple coaches today on the teleconference talk about their center position and how important it is for that guy to be consistent for 73 to 80 plays or what have you any given game day. And Alabama fans know that there was some lagging there last season. I won't go into specifics, but we all know that it wasn't up to par as it should have been. There was some blame placed on Milroe, some blame placed at that position. But I think that that's encouraging that he has shown such progress as well as the offensive line as a whole. I asked Coach Cap what has been pleasantly surprising about his group, and he laughed and he said, usually you're not pleasantly surprised as an offensive lineman coach in fall camp, but he did say how far the group has come in terms of gelling, bonding, and you really need that when you're in the trenches like that.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think first off, I think with this team that the strength is the offensive line. I think it's also the depth at the offensive line spot too. And I love that he's saying, hey man, we got a lot of competition here. I mean, when somebody's trying to take your job, you're going to be your best.
Exactly. And I think that that's something that is interesting to hear. I'm curious, have you guys seen a situation where there's been a player rotating in and out at right tackle at Alabama or elsewhere where that's kind of been the game plan going into the first game?
We've seen it at guard with Tyler Booker a couple of years ago, but that was kind of different and new. We hadn't seen that a whole lot. At tackle, it's definitely been a while, if it has. I think that's probably smart. It was smart to do it with Tyler Booker because obviously he was the more talented guy of the three guards, and then getting him the experience was absolutely huge. But, the fact that you haven't established who your starter is going to be, getting them both reps right now, whoever ends up losing that job, this experience is still going to help them as far as a depth standpoint. So I think that's, absolutely huge for the offensive line.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see come Saturday who's in that starting position. I think that we can all confirm they've been interchangeable in that 1 and 2 position. And I think that what I like to hear from Coach Cap is that they both want that starting role. Iron sharpens iron. We hear that all the time. And I think that that's going to be a strength, like you said, of this offensive line, that you have just a lot of depth that can go out there and play.
What's the atmosphere like? I mean, we're a couple days now away from kickoff. The weather's been fantastic. The coaches seem to be pretty relaxed but fired up. The players, I'm sure, are excited.
For sure. It's so much fun down here. I love my weeks where I get to kind of alternate from Auburn and Alabama, and there is just so much excitement. So after I left on Monday, I drove around campus like I said I would, and the amount of people walking their dogs, lots of golden retrievers. We already have some banners going up on the apartments. It is just, the anticipation is here, but it is hot down here. It is humid, and it feels a little bit like Statesboro with how hot it is and how humid it is.
Well, it's hot, and I'm in Madison right now. It's pretty hot here, Clint. I know you're outside of Birmingham. It's got to be pretty hot where you're at too, right?
Well, when she said that, the first thing I went to do is go check my phone because I haven't done that in a few days. As far as what do we even know what the weather's supposed to be like on Saturday? I think it's supposed to be sunny, but
sunny and pretty hot. I was talking to the guys after we went to the Selma Quarterback Club. And I'm going to share this with you. I may be jinxing myself, but in my almost 4.5, 5 years of covering college football on a Saturday, going back to my Georgia Southern days, I've never had a rain game, ever. So we're going to see if this continues on this year. But so far, the weather has always been very favorable wherever I'm at on any given Saturday.
I love Cole Swindell, so I guess I like a little Georgia Southern myself. But, look, I'm an Alabama grad, obviously, so pretty fired up about the start of the season. Anything else that you picked up today? And is this the last time you're going to get in front of the coaches before the kickoff?
Yep, so it'll be the last time. And I think that one thing that I saw that was definitely a storyline for me was Coach Ellis, Brian Ellis. He actually came from Georgia Southern, and he was at Western Kentucky for 6 years. And he had a lot of questions about Western Kentucky. And one thing that stuck out to me that he said was, when you were at those schools, and I can attest to this coming from the group of 5, those guys aren't coming in here expecting to lose. I think that might be a misconception. Those guys aren't coming in here to score 2 touchdowns. They're coming in to play. And I think that Western Kentucky, their offense is very creative. And that was something that Coach Sheridan mentioned about it. I think Coach Womack also said something that it's shifty. There's going to be a challenge there. And I think when you're coming into a game, you obviously want to be complacent, but there's a lot of factors around, with DeBoer's first game, this new staff, you have young players in the field. And I think that it was interesting that, Coach Ellis continued to emphasize, I have been in their shoes, and no time in history do those teams walk into a place like Alabama expecting to lose.
Great stuff, EG. Thank you. Thank you for the clips, and thank you for jumping on with us, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely. See you guys later.
All right. Thank you from beautiful University of Alabama. There she is, Clint.
That's great information. It is a night game. Someone brought that up in the comments. I was more so asking about the weather for myself. Am I going to be sweating walking over to the stadium? Am I going to be? Because I mean, it's they do give us pretty decent parking, but it's still a little bit of a hike. You're toting around a big old backpack. So I was just I'm a bigger guy, so you got to ask these things. How
You're
hot
not that big of a guy. Come on, man.
I'm a sweater,
and me the way you sound like it sounds like you talk like you're like a 500-pounder though.
Well, I'm redheaded. That's the problem. I'm fair complexion.
Can't get that sun.
Do not
can't
agree.
get that sun. Yeah,
I tell people all the time, I'm either white or I'm pink. There's no such thing as tan. So I'm not a day walker at all. I'm a true pure ginger, to the truest of the true. And so I got to navigate these things, man. Are we wearing long sleeves to avoid the sunburn, or what are we doing? But as far as the actual game and just the atmosphere, I think it's going to be electric. It's going to be fun. And the fact that I completely agree. Those types of schools don't come in with the mentality of I'm going to collect a paycheck, take a beating, and I'm going home. And that's what ends up happening quite a bit. But, do you think New Mexico State was going into that game against Auburn last year expecting to lose? Because, I mean, quite the pleasant surprise if that was the mentality going in when you go from being a 26-point dog to winning by 3 touchdowns. Right. So obviously these teams have an expectation, and so you need to be careful. And they're probably looking for reasons to have that confidence. And a guy like TJ Finley who can say, I played at LSU, I played at Auburn, I've played against these Alabama defenses. I know it. It's like, does that how much does that matter? Maybe not a lot, but from a confidence building standpoint, for a lot of those guys, I'm sure your quarterback having that experience, sharing some of those, I'm sure it's helpful in some ways.
All right, final thing on the show today. I want you to tell me what the expectations are this week going to the first game for Kalen DeBoer and his staff.
I just think, obviously playing good football, which is natural, but it's like, what does that entail? I think it's being in tune offensively, being in sync, your offensive line playing well together, guys battling. Coach Cap talked a lot about, we want guys who are going to be physical, who are going to have that dog mentality. They're going to play through the whistle. You want to see that. You don't want to see a lot of loafing around. It's probably going to still be pretty warm outside by the time kickoff happens, but you want to see guys playing hard. The fact that you are rotating guys there at right tackle, neither one of them should ever be on the field loafing around. You should be going 1,000 miles an hour because, the other 4 offensive linemen are probably out there for, all the snaps. And so, you really don't have any excuse. I want to see those two guys play hard. I want to see defensively how aggressive is Alabama, as far as, what are they doing to create the pressure? How often are they using some of these specialty packages that we've heard about, maybe getting multiple wolves on the field? How often are you seeing Justin Jefferson on the field with Jahad Campbell and all those guys? Lots to look for, but more so if you want to come out of the week feeling successful, it's just doing the little things right. It's not coming away saying, man, Jeremy Bernard had a terrible drop. It was just a focused drop. He was wide open. You don't want to hear about, oh man, they gave up a long touchdown because of coverage bust. You might see some of that, but you mostly want to see guys playing hard, but you want to see a disciplined football team, not a lot of penalties, and guys who are executing the system that's in front of them.
Man, Adam, I should have known you'd be our first super chat, brother. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
There we go, dude. Look at that. A super chat. I'm concerned about the defense, especially the secondary, and I hope Milroe improves. I see 10-2 and a playoff. Well, Adam, man, roll tide. It's good to see you again and see you here on Cover Crimson. And we have broken down this secondary, man. And the thing that I'm worried about more than anything is just that there's not a lot of depth. Like you're talking about 6 scholarship guys. Jaleel Hurley doesn't even seem like he exists right now. So that kind of dwindles it down to 5. 3 of them are true freshmen. That puts you at 2, and I think Milroe is going to be just fantastic. I really do. I think that going through this process, a much better offensive coordinator than Tommy Rees, a much better head coach for offense like Kalen DeBoer. Not saying that Nick Saban wasn't the GOAT on defense, but offense wasn't his thing. I think that it's going to be a lot easier to run the offense with these guys. Secondary, though, speaking, Adam, I think first off, it's all about being healthy. And then how fast can those freshmen step in if they're needed to step in? I mean, talking about super talents, a bunch of 5-stars, but are they ready to go? Is Bam Bam ready to go if you need him? Is Brown ready to go if you need him? You guys know I have a love affair with Jalen Mbakwe. Is he going to be ready when we need him if it's early?
Man, just hearing the coaches earlier, you were getting a lot of questions, like to Brian Ellis talking about coming from Western Kentucky, and then you hear about Coach Cap and this kind of being kind of a dream job because of his background and the fact that he hadn't, done this really at just like major schools. And, you start working your way down the list and it's like, man, Kane Womack, Indiana has been the biggest place he's been. And so you start thinking, man, this is just, Saturday is going to be a different atmosphere than a lot of these guys, the coaching staff has ever been a part of. And you start wondering, okay, that lack of kind of big time experience at some of these spots, is that a bad thing? Should we be talking about that more? And then you realize, like hearing them talk, I think that there's an appreciation for it. These guys, they've been where the Western Kentuckys are as far as these type of approaches. I think that can actually be beneficial to you and how you approach these games coming from the other side. But also it's just like, they bring a very tight knit type of mentality. It's like the small mom and pop shop compared to your big corporation. There's this love and this unity and closeness that you can just tell. All these guys feel like they're gelling extremely well. It seems like it's a really good locker room. The atmosphere is great. Guys are wanting to play hard for each other. Guys are wanting to prove people wrong. And I just, for some reason, man, I think that the background of a lot of these coaches and the leadership that Alabama has in place with the Tyler Bookers, the Jalen Milroes, the Malachi Moores, all those guys, I think that this is going to be not only a fun team to watch because they're very talented, and it's going to be a fun offensive system and a fun defensive system, but I think there's also going to be this unity and this closeness of this group that maybe, I'm not saying that they haven't had that in recent years, but I think it might end up hitting a little bit different. And I think that's only going to make the product that we see on Saturdays that much sweeter.
Adam, we are certainly going to do the call-in show, but it's going to be right here. It's going to be right here on Cover Crimson. So I'm excited about it. I love doing it on Bama Tailgate, but we're going to do it right here. And that's because I got Clint. I got Mike Johnson. I got Jake Coker. I mean, think about all the guys that we get to hang out with because of that. And so count on us. And he also said that Sid Vicious died yesterday. Clint and I both love wrestling. So Sid Vicious, man, tip of the cap to you. We'll pour some out for you. One of the great wrestlers, one of the great heels of our day. Always sad when those guys die. And I mean, they put their bodies through hell to do that. And I enjoyed watching him, man. He was a really good wrestler. So thanks, Adam. It's good to see you. And then Michael, man, getting back right in the super chats. You guys bringing the super chats today, man. Thank you. Cause I told him, I said, the crew's going to come. They're going to be here. And we got an absolutely all-star packed lineup with guys like Clint and Mike Johnson, which that show is going to be tonight. That's for subscribers, but we're going to put it out there. It's like we're like drug dealers. We're going to throw you a little taste, and then it's going behind the paywall. You're going to have to, dish out the cash. But for the annual membership, you get this, and then plus, you'll have shows like that. Mike Johnson's definitely worth it. Michael Coleman, man, Roll Tide, thank you so much. Total dominations on both sides of the ball. And I think that's what it comes down to. I remember Mike Johnson telling me about, talking about skill players and this and that. He's like, you win championships with the core, with those guys on the inside, the guys in the trenches, man. And I agree with that.
Hey, go listen to Greg McElroy talk about that 2009 national championship game against Texas. I guess technically it was played in 2010, but I mean, he talks about they went in thinking
I was there.
The trenches, man. Hey, that's if you go into a game and you feel really good. I don't know how good Florida State felt. They probably felt pretty good last week. So let's not act like that's the, just because you feel good doesn't mean it's necessarily going to play out that way. But when you can see on tape and you think you've got a sizable advantage on that front, as far as, your offensive front, your defensive front, man, the rest of it just kind of handles itself. I mean, because if you need to, you can do whatever you want. If your offensive line's dominating, if you need to run the football 40 times, you can. If you need to pass block, you can. If your defensive line's dominating, it can take pressure off your secondary, off your second level. It's just, it really does start inside, and out front, inside to out. and your trenches make a huge deal. So if you want that total domination, Alabama's going to need to be able to dominate on both fronts.
No doubt about it. Guys, our show is always presented by MyBookie, and we appreciate those guys so much because they make this possible, and as much as you guys do too as well, all you guys. But Cover Crimson is brought to you by MyBookie. Use the promo code next round to double your initial deposit. That's right. MyBookie will double your initial deposit when you use the promo code next round. Kick off the season with mybookie.ag and double your initial deposit using that promo code next round. All right. Special thanks to EG for jumping in. Clint Lamb, any final thoughts before we break out of here?
No, we still got, another couple of shows. So, this won't be the last time that people see us this week, but it's getting closer, man. We got football happening tomorrow. We're less than, I guess about 24 hours away, just over 24 hours away. So looking forward to that, getting to see some SEC teams finally get, play. And then just, we'll be one day closer to Alabama kicking off and getting this thing underway, brother. I can't wait.
I can't either. A couple shows to tell you about. One is Bama and Bourbon. Watch that with my buddy Aaron Suttles. I've been friends with Aaron Suttles like a long time. Like I watch it. Now he's a thin Aaron Suttles. This isn't Aaron Suttles I don't know that well, although I gave him a hug at the Floor Bama Mullet Toss, and I was like, man, this guy's lost a ton of weight. But he's on there with LT, who we love from the next round. That's a show that you guys got to check out. Jim Dunaway and Tyler Watts have their show coming back where they break down the game. Clint, you and Stacy have a show on here. Mike Johnson and me have a show on here. We're throwing out the content, so make sure you stick by our channel here at Cover Crimson on YouTube and check out all the content.
Hey, subscribe, guys. Yeah, I mean, obviously go to covercrimson.com and subscribe. We're trying to get the conversations and stuff going over there. We got a ton of stuff up, and I want to hear what people, we got score predictions going on over there. You do get that incredible Cover Crimson t-shirt that Mick's wearing if you do sign up for the annual subscription.
Go a size larger though, Clint. I mean,
we need to mention that every time. It is you need to go a size up, but they'll connect with you after the fact if you do the annual subscription. But definitely go sign up over there. We're trying to build that, and also subscribe to this YouTube channel. The comments help. The liking the video certainly helps. Share it with all your friends. We appreciate that so much, but nothing helps this YouTube channel more than subscribing as far as getting us into that algorithm. And just, when YouTube sees, hey, when people watch these guys, they subscribe to these guys, it must be good content. We need to be putting it out there in front of more people. That helps us more than anything. And, we just appreciate everybody being here, and we'll see you guys soon.
Hey, roll tide, everybody. Thanks for hanging.